Wrestling promotions in 2025 are truly doing themselves no favors. They are playing the self-sabotaging game and they are failing their young wrestlers, right? In this video, I'm going to talk about what mistakes have been made when it comes to the development of young wrestlers in the wrestling industry, and I'm going to go over how they can fix that, how they can remedy that problem, and why it's so important that they do. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time. Let's hop into this. So I'm going to talk about a few wrestlers. I'm going to talk about New Japan a little bit later in the video, kind of some of their young talent and the mistakes they've made regarding those guys. But first, I'm going to talk about WWE's talent. Okay, I'm going to talk about several young guys with WWE who deserve to be prioritized more. They deserve a better look. They deserve more time. So let's start by talking about Carmelo Hayes. Now, Carmelo Hayes has been kind of on the back burner of WWE's creative plans for quite some time now. I think we all know that. Most people agree with that. He's really not been prioritized the way that he should, and he hasn't gotten the time and effort and really even the respect that he deserves on that main roster ever since he's been called up. All right, he's been with The Miz, goofing around, not even in the tag division with The Miz, which I wouldn't want The Miz to be in the tag division, but the point remains that they are doing nothing with Carmelo Hayes, and we saw that trend be bucked recently when Carmelo Hayes, he went up against Sami Zayn on this past episode of SmackDown, and they had a great match. They had an incredible, I'd go like 3.5 on it. I thought it was a great TV match. It was a great example of what Sami Zayn can bring to SmackDown, and it was an even better example of what Carmelo Hayes can bring when he is given the opportunity. Now, as a booker, I don't know how you see what he can do, which he's shown that what he can do several times, and you're still going to use him the exact same way you've been using him. Now, the optimistic side of me would like to think, oh, they see something in Carmelo. They know Carmelo is talented, but there's just not enough time, or there's not enough spots on the card to fit him in. But the logical side of me says no, there's absolutely enough spots on the card to fit him in, because you got guys like the Wyatt Six running around who, in my opinion, aren't adding much. And then you have Carmelo Hayes, who is in catering. So it doesn't seem like there's no spots for Carmelo Hayes. There absolutely are. And they found a spot for him on SmackDown, and he showed them what they can do. But he is a prime example of someone who has been under-prioritized, overlooked, and disrespected. They need to give him the time of day. They need to move him along, because I think he can make SmackDown a better show when he is on. And so it's alarming to me when you see WWE taking these steps, these missteps rather, to keep guys like Carmelo Hayes down at a certain point, right? They're trying to stifle them. There's no active effort to bring them along and to move them up the card. It's like they don't care, and it's like they don't have much of a regard for developing young talent and looking ahead of several years. I'll jump into this a little bit later in the video because it is an issue. When you look at WWE's main event scene, it's really old. It's really old. Cody Rhodes, he's in his 40s. Gosh, CM Punk is in his 40s. Seth Rollins, he's either in his 40s or is getting there. Most of WWE's men's main event scene is older, and bringing guys like Carmelo Hayes along just to the mid card, you could start to make a dent in that problem a lot sooner and a lot more effectively than maybe some would expect. So that's Carmelo Hayes. Okay, he is, in my opinion, the prime example of being misused, failed, disrespected, whatever term you want to use, it applies. He's the prime example of that. And a few other names that I'm going to touch on, actually a couple, are Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. Now, I know, I feel like a lot of people will hear me say that and think, well, no, Bronson Reed, Bron Breakker, they're in the vision. They're doing great. They're being prioritized. WWE is making an active effort to bring them along, and that's true. They are. I think Triple H and Bruce Pritchard and all those guys, they see something in Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. They see what we see, and so they're making steps to act on that. The problem is, how effective are those steps? You know, how effective are the steps that they're taking to bring them along? Are they getting the job done? Are they getting the job done? That's the question. And so for me, the vision as a whole, I'm just going to touch on this really quickly. I'd grade it like a C. You know, from if you're doing a grading scale A to F, I'd give it like a C. I think it's been pretty mediocre, if I'm honest, very painfully average. Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, I'd say, are the most disappointing part of it, because there's so much more you can do with them in that group. You can present them in so many more colorful and like literally colorful and entertaining ways, but they refuse to. And so why it's literally colorful there is because you look at what they wear on TV, you look at what they wear in their matches. They wear black singlets, they wear black suits. Their personality is stripped from them, and this is because they're meant, heels, so they're meant to be a certain way, and they're meant to dress a certain way, and they're meant to be villainous, if you will. But to me, you can still be villainous, you can still be heelish with personality. You can still have some flash to you and something that catches your eye, but you're still a heel. That both things can be true, if you know what I mean. Right, Bronson Reed, for example, he has some really nice Bam Bam Bigelow gear that he busted out a while back, and we haven't seen it since. We haven't seen it since he's joined the Vision. He's just been wearing these very boring black singlets, and Braun Breaker is the same. He has this really vibrant style with some of his singlets that he's worn several times in the past. He has not worn that once with the Vision, and it gets on my nerves because these are guys who are charismatic in their own way, in my opinion. They know how to draw a crowd in, and you're just stripping them of their personality. You're stripping them of everything that makes them unique, and you're just watering them down. You're diluting them, and that's an issue to me. Another example of this is the types of shirts they wear when they're not wrestling. So Braun Breaker, he wears some very corny WWE shop merch, something to do with like the dogs barking, or that kind of gimmick. He kind of calls on that. And Bronson Reed, guess what he wears? He wears a tribal thief shirt, because he steals shoes. It's very corny in my opinion, and it is not something that guys like them should be wearing. I've said it before, they're the last guys who should be wearing WWE shop merchandise. It's really harmful to them and kind of how you wish they would be presented. In fact, the whole tribal thief thing with Bronson Reed, where he steals shoes and wears them across his neck with the WWE shop merchandise on, that's turned into more of a hokey gimmick. It's turned into more of a campy, overdone thing that's just made to sell t-shirts than it actually is something that was cool. It was kind of funny and kind of cool the first time he did it, when he stole Roman's shoes, and it was like he was snatching his chain, man. It was kind of cool. But since then, they've turned it into a hokey gimmick. They've turned it into a dopey quirk about him, and it really has diluted him more than it's helped him. So that's Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. I really do feel like the steps they're taking to bring them along are not effective enough. How they're being presented, how they come across is not effective enough. They come across as like thing one and thing two. They wear the same gear. They come across as heels that are just meant to bump for the baby faces at times. It's very harmful to them. I'm not particularly a fan of how they've been presented. I think it's something that definitely needs to shift. And if I'm honest, I think more could have been done with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed had you just moved them up the card quicker. Had you just, maybe had them have some world title matches or something along those lines. More could have been done, and you could have retained, everything that made them special without putting them in the Vision. I think the Vision has helped, like, it's kept them like afloat. It hasn't like sunk them. But I think it's done more harm than the good that could have been done had we just moved quicker with them when it came to moving them up the card. For example, I would have loved to see Braun Breaker not hot-shotted, but fast-tracked to the main event. I would have loved to see him hold a world title, say this year or say next year, instead of kind of twiddling our thumbs and spinning our wheels with the Vision, which, like I said, has done more harm than good to their personalities, presentation. I think more could have been done. And not only is it more beneficial for guys like Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, but it also puts a dent in WWE's aging main event scene. I actually made a video on this not too long ago. It was actually my first video. It was a video basically talking about how old WWE's main event scene is getting, and I said it earlier in this video, it's quite old. And you look at other promotions, you look at an AEW, their main event scene is comprised of guys like Will Ospreay, guys like Swerve Strickland, guys like MJF, Hangman Adam Page right now. Those are kind of the pillars of AEW, and they're all in their 30s. MJF might be in his 20s, I don't know exactly, but they're all on the right side of like 35, and that's reflective. It comes across in what they do. There's more life, there's more spark when you put it up against something like WWE's main event scene. To me, it's a night and day difference because there's just so much more juice. There's just so much more fun to be had in AEW's main event scene. I see WWE's main event scene as kind of old, kind of aging. Still, there's quality there because Punk is great, Seth is great, Cody's amazing, but there's not enough promise. I'd say there's not enough promise. And I think if you were to take a guy like Ilya Dragunov when he comes back from injury, which should be very, very soon, and put him in that main event picture, kind of fast track him to that spot, I think a lot of good could happen. I think that WWE's main event scene would benefit from that. It would get that, real jolt of spark, that jolt of electricity that it kind of needs. And Ilya would be better off because you wouldn't be spinning your wheels with him in the mid card for months, maybe a year, maybe years. I mean, we know how slow Triple H moves with these things. So in general, there's a lot of mistakes that have been made when it comes to their young talent, moving them along, and how it relates to the main event scene and kind of keeping that main event scene feel fresh and alive. I think they have a big issue there. I mean, AEW is guilty of this too when it comes to their women's division. Women like Queen Aminata, Willow Nightingale, both of them are young, promising wrestlers who are being failed by Tony Khan. Now, Chris Statlander won the AEW women's title at All Out, and I think that's a great example of a promotion moving fast, decisive, and with conviction when it comes to their young wrestlers. I love the fact that Chris Statlander won the belt, and I think more of that, more decisions like that should be made when it comes to young wrestlers all over the business. But yeah, Queen Aminata, Willow Nightingale, I'm sure there are names I'm missing in AEW that deserve more prioritization and more time and effort, but those are two names that immediately came to mind when I think about women and wrestlers who are being undervalued and who are being underprioritized. So I do also want to talk about New Japan. I know some people watching this video, some of my like normal viewers, some of my friends, they might not care about this and because they might not know about some of the names that I'm talking about, but it is also a very good example of a promotion failing their young talent when it comes to booking and decision making. So Yota Tsuji, a big young star, guy that New Japan is going to have to bank on for years to come, and this was his year to win the G1 Climax, and he was going to do it, and he was the favorite going into the tournament. And what ended up happening was Konosuke Takeshita ended up winning the G1 Climax, and that worked out fine. Yota Tsuji will still probably get the title at Wrestle Kingdom, but it's just a weird roundabout way that they're taking to get there, in my opinion. And Yota Tsuji, he didn't even make the final. Who made the final was Evil, who's a whole nother topic, a whole nother issue for New Japan, pushing Evil and prioritizing him like that. But I digress. You got a guy like Yota Tsuji, you got guys like Yuya Uemura, those kind of guys, and they're just taking their sweet time with those guys, and they're taking too long, in my opinion. I think Yota Tsuji should have won the G1. I think he should have been challenging at Wrestle Kingdom. He still will, because Konosuke Takeshita is probably going to win the title from ZSJ later in the year, and he will go into Wrestle Kingdom as champion. But it still could have been a good way to cement your young star as the guy, the flag bearer, the guy who's taking the mantle. It would have been a good way to cement him as that guy, Yota Tsuji, if he had won the G1. Again, it'll probably work out fine. He's going to win the title at Wrestle Kingdom. I'd like to think so. So I'm not worried about that. But it's just another example of a promotion failing to bring their young talent to the spot they need to, failing to rise to the occasion of investing in their young guys. It's shown with Braun Breaker. It's shown with Bronson Reed. It's shown with Carmelo Hayes. It's shown with Yota Tsuji. Promotions just failing to rise to that occasion and take that risk and really invest in something that could really end up working out for them in the long run. So yeah, definitely hoping that specifically Triple H, because I think the other promotions like New Japan, I think is going to be able to break that trend once they get a new booker. If Hiroshi Tanahashi starts to take over and is a little bit closer to the decision making, I think they can fix those problems pretty easily if you just get a fresh eyes, a fresh mind in there. But with Triple H, he's obviously going to be booker for a little while, quite some time. I don't think he's going anywhere. So him fixing that problem is a bit of a bigger ask, in my opinion. I'd love to see him fix that and move his young talent along with more conviction and more decisiveness, I think, is needed from him. But will he do it? I don't know. Time will tell. Time will tell. Right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. Please do comment in the comment section. How do you feel about all this? Do you see this problem? Do you agree with my takes? I'd love to get a conversation started. I'd love to talk to you about this because it's a very interesting topic to me. Right before I head out, please do like and subscribe. That would just mean the world to me. It would help this video get seen by more people. It would help my channel get seen by more people. So I'd really, really appreciate it if you could do that. Until next time, guys, see ya.